Okay, very good evening, everyone. It's Ajay Billav here. And just a quick check for the chat before I proceed. Can you guys hear me? Yes, no, maybe. Hi, Sai Pooja. Hi, Seema. Okay, I believe audio is clear. Great. So let's proceed. As you guys know, why we are here. And before I start with that, as I've told, it's Ajay Billav. I take care of Verzeo operations, and I'm gonna be your host for today. And I believe you might have already seen the post and promotional things that has been already kept under the social media handles. I believe you are enthusiastic and interested to attend this particular webinar. At another day, we are attending the webinar on how to deal with rejections. I believe most of you know how to handle the success, but in terms of rejections, when it comes, right? So that is a difficult path. It might be related to your corporate life, or it might be related to your personal life, right? So to speak upon that, we have Rajiv Rayan with us. Rajiv has a PhDM in human resource management. Currently, he is working at Google as a HR admin professional, and he has experience in many multinational companies like Capgemini and Amazon, and some technical skills. He is proficient in our resume writing, social media recruiting, and international hiring, and many other. And some soft skills are negotiation, teamwork, leadership, and time management. And he's keen on helping people to understand the importance of HR management and methods of recruiting and different categories of people also. So today we are diving, as it is an initial webinar from Rajiv, right? So today we are diving into in terms of rejection, and to understand about how to deal with rejection, what kind of things that you need to keep in your mind. So we are not keeping this particular webinar or podcast to a specific topic, right? So let's say whatever the question that you have in terms of what to say, recruitment, or else in terms of rejections or something like that, you can definitely ask Rajiv. He would be able to help you out. Let's not waste much time of Rajiv and you. I think I will it to Rajiv. Just to give a quick structural information of the webinar. We will be going ahead with the talk, and after that we'll be having the most important part, that is Q&A session. So whatever the questions that you have, you can definitely shoot it out on the webinar topic. We'll be definitely happy to help you out, and we will be able to answer those. That's all from my end, guys. I think I would be handing it over to Rajiv. It's all yours. You can take it further, Rajiv. Thank you for attending again.
Great. Good evening, everyone. And thank you, Ajay, for that introduction and the opportunity to talk about this particular topic. Rejection is a topic which seriously needs to be talked about a lot, because we as individuals and as humans need to understand how to deal with it as a factor, and how do we overcome it. This is something which everybody goes through in life, whether you're a student, whether you're a working professional, whether you're, in your family, in your social circle. Like, this is something which you will see probably in all your life. So the goal over here is to talk about rejection and what are some of the methods which we can deal with it as well. I also plan to make the session very interactive, and I just don't want to keep giving a lot of yarn over here. So if everyone's comfortable, I'm going to ask a little bit of questions. Feel free to use the chat to answer them, right? So as Ajay said, my name is Rajiv. I have a total of 9 years of experience with HR. I started my career as a recruiter and later moved on to be an admin professional. I currently work at Google. Prior to Google, I've been with Amazon and Capgemini. Okay. So let me ask you this, right? How many of you in this call have not experienced rejection? If anybody has not experienced rejection, please type in the chat saying that I've not experienced rejection.
Guys, haven't you faced rejection in your life? I believe that would be what do you say, a thing that most of you might have faced at some point. Yes, no, maybe.
Okay, Prince, cool. Thanks for answering. Right. So let's get to it. I'm going to quickly tell you a story about a person who was forced into engineering. Can I also, I just want to understand, right? How many of you all here are students in your final year? If you can just add +1 or me in the chat. How many of you all are from maybe final year of college or just finished college? I just want to understand how many of you all are students versus how many of you all are working. Okay. Cool. So here's a story, right? So this is a story about a person who was forced into engineering against their choice, studied engineering, wrote the same program for 4 papers. First year MCA, just finished graduation. Okay, cool. Thanks, Sheikh, for sharing that. And then what happens? So, question to the group: what happens in your final year of any college? What is that? What is that one phenomenon which everybody talks about in your final year of college? Let's see who can answer this question. What is that one phenomenon which comes to your mind when you talk about your final year of college? Okay, so I'll come to it. What comes to your final year of college would be your placements, right? Like if you're in the final year, you will hear a lot of advice from your seniors on placements. You will hear a lot of advice on your parents on placements. You will hear a lot of advice also on from your teachers, from your society, from almost everyone is asking you, are you you're in the final year? Are you placed or not? Right. So this is my story, right? So while I was forced into engineering, yes, that's right, PPT. While I was forced into engineering, like getting a job was actually like, I mean, that's a pressure which almost anybody goes through, and there came placements. So so a lot of top tier one IT service companies did come to my college for placements. And at that point of time, like I thought I was really good with aptitude. I also thought that because my personality is of that, like I was involved in a lot of culturals, I was involved in a lot of NGO activities, I was involved in a lot of events. I thought that this would be like that the companies would look at this, and I would probably have an edge and somehow get into these companies, if not in engineering, at least in something else, like like sales or recruiting or any of these fields. Okay? So it's not difficult to predict what happened next. What happened next was went for company one, got rejected in the first round. Went for company two, got rejected in the first round. Went for company three, again got rejected in the first round. Right. And this was a time when a lot of my friends, a lot of my neighbors, a lot of my relatives were at a time where they had cracked jobs in very good companies, and they were also offered pretty good salaries at that point of time to start working. Most of them had roles in India, but few of them also had roles abroad, right? So this is a point in life where I felt very low. I felt that like I didn't make it, and there was a lot more to do in life, right? But then I also kind of analyzed. So one of the things with in dealing with rejection, right, and this is something which I did subconsciously, is when you see a problem, it's always good to retreat. When I say retreat, I'm not talking about giving up. I'm not talking about just closing the door. I'm talking about take a step back. Whenever you have a problem in life, take a step back and analyze it from, let's say, a third party lens. If you want, you can also get, let's say, a mentor or your close friend to do so, but just analyze the situation a little bit more. And I did that, right? So while I was looking at my career options, now I don't have a job, right? So I was looking at the kind of skills which I have to the table, my attributes, my the personality which I have, what I want to do in life. I did do some research on that, and then I started applying for jobs. And I was lucky enough to start my career at an agency in Bangalore. Obviously, like if you compare it with, let's say, an engineer's salary at an IT company, it wasn't that high, but it was a good starting point for my career and helped me build and grow to where I am today, right? So one of the most important points I want to talk about over here is when you're looking at rejection, also look at context. Yes, I did get rejected for a lot of these IT engineering roles with very good companies. But did I actually want to go and work there? Did I actually want to go and write software? The answer was no. I was just looking for a job. And when I saw that everybody around me made it and I didn't, like that kind of hit me bad. But then when I took a step back, analyzed the situation, and started applying for roles which did match me, I was able to make it to get this job in Bangalore, which later helped me, scale up, build the skills needed, move to Capgemini. That again helped me, do what I needed to do to move to get into Amazon, and from Amazon to Google, right? Even if you look at my career move with all of these companies, when I was, let's say, in my first company and I decided I wanted to take on a better role and hence I'll look out in the market, it's not like Capgemini Capgemini was the first company that I interviewed with and that I was able to clear it. I did interview with a lot of other companies as well and did get rejected at various stages. And I did apply the same technique of just looking back at, take a step back, retreat, look at the problem, and then have a solution. So if you look at the reason I got rejected at a lot of other companies before Capgemini was, I was in the stage where I just had maybe what 1.5 years of experience, and they were kind of looking at someone with a little bit more experience and tenure, right? So I actually had to make this understanding and come to terms with, okay, so these companies are looking for professionals with a lot of more experience. So I had to look at companies which can take this 1 to 2 year kind of experience, and then that's what happened to Capgemini. And it was literally the same move even before Amazon, right? Like I had been rejected at least by 3 to 4 companies before I was able to get into Amazon. And the same with Google, right? When I was moving from Amazon to Google and I was interviewing, I did also, get rejected a lot. Okay. So here is the thing, right? There are two things in which I want to call out over here. There is rejection and there is also failure, right? Both of them are two completely different concepts. So don't try to mix them together. While there is a comment saying that failure is always a stepping stone to success, right? If you look at any entrepreneur today, they would have gone through loads of failures before they launch their product or launch their company or launch their startup, right? But at the same time, they are folks who had also been rejected a lot. So question to the group, right? Does anyone want to share an example of celebrity rejection in the chat? Ajay, you can also answer if you want. Anyone wants to type in the chat about any famous celebrity rejection that you have heard about, and I'm going to use that example to drive a point.
Not that I can recall of, Rajiv.
Okay, so I'm going to go with very easy examples, right? Like even if you take people like Amitabh Bachchan, he was rejected, I think, by a radio company because of his voice. If you take a Shah Rukh Khan, Shah Rukh Khan was also rejected in a similar way. For those basketball fans, Michael Jordan was rejected. His school coach actually felt that he couldn't play, and he was rejected as well.
I think Hrithik Roshan was also the one who had faced issue with stammering at the initial place, and he was rejected.
Yeah, so a lot of them. The list goes on. Like J.K. Rowling, if you have any Harry Potter fans over here, J.K. Rowling was rejected at least, I think, by 12 publishers, and the way J.K. Rowling became successful was that like one of the publishers had given the script to the granddaughter to read. The granddaughter literally couldn't put the script down because it was so interesting. So that's how J.K. Rowling came to fame, right? So the point I'm trying to make is almost everybody goes through rejection. Rejection, I would say, is actually something which kind of makes you stronger and makes you bounce back better. And this is a human thing, right? So the thing is, like, almost all of these folks have gone through it. So when you and I go through it, it's no different. It's the application and the effort which will yield success, right? Now, let's talk a little bit more about rejection, let's say from an interview perspective, since everyone's from a college, right? So here are a few tips and takeaways. Now, there are various kinds of rejections you'll see when you're interviewing. Rejection one is, let's say you apply for the role and the HR or recruiter tells you that you're not a fit for this role, right? So this is not even something. I mean, this mostly happens through email or messages, like mostly through email. So there's no audio communication at all over here. So when this happens, let me give you a solution. Let's talk about some practical examples. So when I say take a step back and analyze the problem, like what I would do is when I was rejected for roles, right? When I was rejected for roles, I would ask the recruiter, can you tell me why am I rejected for this role? Or, okay, I'm rejected for role A, but what about role B? Would that suit my profile? So ask the right questions and figure out why you're getting rejected. The reasons can be multiple. It can be content missing on your resume. It can be experience. It can be skills needed. So skills and content are two different things, right? Like a lot of us actually like have a lot of skills, but often we miss writing it out on the resume because for whatever reasons, right? So this is one form of rejection. The second form of rejection is the actual interview. Like you go for an interview, be it virtual or face to face, and you get rejected. Let's say after 2 rounds, after 3 rounds, after 4 rounds, or maybe just initially, right? So in this case, like the reasons for rejections can be, maybe it can do with problem solving, it can do with attitude, it can do with aptitude, it can also have something to do maybe with domain knowledge. So it's always important to check out find the reason why you're getting rejected, take a step back and work on it, right? So this is from an interview perspective. Are you from, I'm just looking at the question. So Ajay, what I'm going to do is I'm just looking at the chat. As and when people ping, I'm going to answer the questions real time as well. So Prince, I did study engineering. Like I said, I was forced into engineering. I do have a bachelor's degree in electronics and instrumentation engineering, in which I secured, I think, 72%. But I've never worked as an engineer in my entire career. I've only worked as a recruiter, and now I work as an. Okay. Coming to the next phase of rejection, right? Along with rejection, there is also something called fear, right? A lot of us, this fear is actually a blocker, right? And the reason, and any human would have this, because let's assume if you're going to ask somebody for something, there is that fear that, oh, what if this person says no? And what is even worse is, what if this person says no in a public setting? So let me give you a very, very funny example, simple example. Let's say you're going for a buffet, Okay, you're going for an amazing buffet, and the buffet on the side also has, let's assume, some premium kind of juice. Okay, so let's say that they have some kind of beverages or juices which probably is not available in India. It's only available abroad, let's say in the US, right? Now here is the dilemma which you will have. You'll be like, okay, I'm paying for the whole buffet. Are these juices included in my package for the buffet, right? Genuine doubt. So here's what most of us would do. Most of us would be like, I actually have that fear of going and talking to the manager or talking to the waiter and asking them, is this included in my buffet meal? Or what you can also do is go and ask the manager, hey, is this included? Is this a part of what I'm paying for? What is the worst thing which can happen? The manager would say, worst thing is the manager would say, sorry, sir, it's not. And that's okay. Like, no harm lost. I mean, like, uh, worst comes to worst, like you don't get to drink that particular juice, right? So the one of the ways in which you can kind of remove this fear is start practicing it. Don't be shy to ask questions, and don't term taking like a no like a negative thing, right? Always look at it like, what is the worst thing which can happen if I ask for something? Because let's face it or not, all of us are going to get rejected at some point or the other. The goal of this talk is to convert those rejections into successes or into achieving your whatever you want to achieve, right? So there's also another part which comes into rejection, a factor which I'm going to talk about, which is called negotiation, right? Now, okay. So how many of you all in this call like shopping? How many of you all like bazaar shopping, street shopping? If you can type in the chat.
I think most of the Indians do bargain in the what to say shops. I guess it might be sari shop, it might be clothing or anything.
Okay.
I guess. Raji.
Okay. So here is a classic example, right? Let's say you're going to a bazaar and you see a very good T-shirt. The T-shirt costs 500 rupees. Okay. Now, if you directly if you go to the vendor and ask the vendor, Bhaiya, I cannot pay 500 rupees, but I will pay 400 rupees for it, right? Most of the time, the vendor would say, sir, I can't do that. I can't sell it. It's a fixed price of 500, right? Then what do most of us do when this happens? Now, look at it over here. The vendor has clearly rejected you, saying that I am rejecting your sale request. That is what has happened over here. So what do most of us do? Either you will keep continuing it and asking the vendor, no, buyer, please, can you do something? Like, I will buy more. I would recommend you to my friends. Or what you would also do is walk away, right? Yeah, right. You would also walk away. Now, coming to the thing of negotiation and compromise, right? Now the vendor has rejected you for your request of 400 rupees, in which you asked for a 100 rupee discount. What if you ask the vendor for 450? Right? What about if you say 450? Now the vendor may still say, oh, you know what, 450 is still, I can't give it to you, but maybe let's close at 470. And then you would be like, okay, I save 30 rupees on this t-shirt and I go ahead and purchase. Now, while this may seem like a simple kind of a thing which happens to everyone, there's a lot to do with rejection over here. Notice that when you get rejected, you are actually going and having this vendor and asking the vendor if you can do something better, right? If there is some kind of compromise. And that actually kind of helps a lot in this case, right? So the vendor would, so this is a very, very simple example. So if ever you're getting rejected for anything, always try to, negotiate and ask for other options, because oftentimes you will find it. Okay. Now talking about people rejections, there can be a time like, okay, now let's inverse the roles. Let's say you're right now you're the seller and you're trying to sell something to a bunch of people. Okay. So coming to this thing, right? let's assume that I'm a person who doesn't like ice creams at all. I don't eat ice creams for whatever reason. And if you're an ice cream seller, if you're going to keep coming and selling ice creams to me, what do you think is going to happen? Logically, I don't touch ice creams. Okay. I don't touch ice creams and you're selling ice creams. What do you think is going to happen if you're going to try to sell ice cream to me? Any guesses? So obviously I'm going to reject it, right? You may do the best promotions, you may do the best sales, you may do the best marketing, but obviously I'm going to reject it. But here's what I'm going to teach you. Now there is also the how. It's now if you're polite, if you are smiling, if you're asking it to me in a nice way, if you have a conversation with me. In this point of time, while I may not be a fan of ice creams, let's assume my friend is. Like it doesn't cost me anything from to refer you to my friend so that my friend can buy your ice cream. Correct. So while I did reject your request, I may be able to get somebody else to help you out over here. Right. So this is another thing which I wanted to talk about. Now, coming from the selling standpoint, let's assume that you want to do this. You Yeah, you don't touch. Yeah, correct. Good point, Prince. Yes, that's right. So now I'm also going to. Okay, so how many of you all are fans of probability? Anybody studied a lot of probability and statistics in your college? Okay, so I'll talk about probability as well, right? So try to play the numbers game. Okay, so probability is a science or a math which will never let you down. So try to play the numbers game. Now, if you're trying to sell ice cream only to me and get rejected, don't stop there. Know your audience and try to sell it to more people. So very simple logic, right? The easiest way to avoid rejection. If you know your audience and if you're selling them the right thing, that way rejection is almost impossible, right? So if I'm a person who would definitely buy ice creams and you know that, and you're going to sell that to me, as long as with few other set of people who are going to do that, I'm very sure that the chances of me rejecting the offer for ice cream would be less compared to most cases, unless there is something like you're selling it, let's say at 10 rupees, and I know someone else who sells it for 8 rupees. So, and like the quality is the same, so I will obviously go with someone who is giving me this 2 rupees of discount. Right. So that's another thing which I want to talk about with respect to rejection. Okay. So rejection is a two-way street. There is the rejector, the person who is rejecting. There is also the rejectee, right? So I also wanted to talk about few things like what happens with respect to when a person rejects, is the rejector, right? Now, the common philosophy or the thinking is that if you are a rejector, life is very easy. You don't go through much when you are rejecting the request or someone. But that's not the case often, right? Even as a rejector, it is difficult. And the only feedback and tip I have for you if you're a rejector is please do be direct. Don't beat around the bush, because then like don't do something like, oh, you were great, everything was smooth, but unfortunately we're not going to do this, right? That's a little weird. Rather, it's good to give reasons of why you are rejecting the request, and it's also very important to do this in a very polite manner, because the world is very small, and there's a chance that you may meet this person again, um, or you may see this person again as well. Okay. Uh, Coming on to more things about dealing with rejection. So I was actually following a lot of stuff on the internet, right? I was reading a lot of things on the internet while I was prepping for this call. And one of the suggestions is actually get used to being rejected. If so another simple example, stage fright is something which everybody is afraid of, right? Like I mean, nobody wants to go and speak in front of 100 people, 200 people, 1,000 people, because the average human is scared of public speaking. But if you talk to any good public speaker or orator, they would have practiced it a lot. Like they would have gotten used to speaking to maybe 10 people, then 15 people, 50 people, 100 people, so on and so forth. There's a lot of practice. So what I would also recommend is, I mean, admit the fact that let us try, let's ask people for something, and let's see what comes out of it. Right? It's okay. Like, always ask yourself, what is the worst case which can happen, like in this rejection? Right? Um, and then think of it, right? Like, so there can be multiple situations. Um, so a very simple example of rejection is, let's say you're sitting at home with your family, you're having dinner, and there is one piece of cake, and it's you and your sibling. You can ask your sibling that, you know what, can I have this piece of cake? The sibling may say yes, the sibling may say no. But what is the worst thing which can happen over here, right? There's a very simple example. Worst thing is the sibling says no, and you don't get your piece of cake. But I don't see any bad after effects and such. Right? So it's always good to practice these kind of things and get used to it. Okay. So also the fact of using rejection as a fuel, right? Again, coming back to the point of celebrities and entrepreneurs and the rock stars we have today, like a lot of them have been rejected more than 100 times, more than 1,000 times in some cases. But one of the things is they actually never gave up. Okay. So I was also reading about this experiment which was conducted in a university where they actually told people that you are going to get rejected. Okay, they told people that this is what is going to happen. We're going to make you do these particular tasks and you are going to get rejected. And they put them in a room. Okay. And then what happened is, like, some of them got rejected and some of them didn't. But actually, like, even when the fact of just telling them that actually started causing them stress, as well as, like, that's the way the human body functions, right? There is something called an opioid. So an opioid was released from the human body, and people were already feeling uncomfortable even before doing this experiment. So the point being is, like, don't try to fight what is not human and what is inside of you. You would need to make the best of it and try to use that, right? So another practice is also, like, you can do this with your friends or with your mentors. Like, I mean, if you have a group you trust of at least 3 to 4 people, you can do that. Or if you have just, let's say, one mentor who you trust, you can also do that. Do share your rejection stories and you'll be surprised. Right? You'll be surprised to know on what happens to various people, what different people go through, and you'll also realize it's not just me. Right? It's happening to everyone else. So one of the feelings with rejection is, like in my case, right? Like, I was the only one who got rejected in all of these interviews, and I thought that something was wrong with me, and like, it's my fault, and I'm the only one going through this. But then I did have a chat with few other acquaintances from college. They said the same thing, that what, even they didn't make it, and they felt the same way. Obviously, this didn't happen in a very structured way. This happened eventually over coffee. Once we started working, once we got to know each other really well. But the point I'm trying to make is, this is something which everybody goes through in life. So you need to also embrace that and adapt that as well. Right. So I know I've spoken a lot. I just want to stop right now to ask if there's any questions or any comments. If not, I can move to the next section of the topic.
Guys, anything to ask? Any questions related to anything where you might have feel difficult to understand, or else any counter questions that you want to add? Rajiv, there is a lag which would be there while we are streaming, right? So it is of a minute or two. So let's say now I'm asking, it would be heard to the audience after a minute or 2 minutes.
Sure, no problem.
Sai Pooja asks about resume. Does it matter anything when it comes to rejection?
Yeah, it does. So, like coming back to my point, right, Sai Pooja. So let's assume you. So let me tell you how it works, right? Um, your resume is a ticket to getting an interview. Think of it that way. So once your resume is moved from resume to the interview stage, 90% of the times it is going to, like, whatever happens in the interview is going to be going to help you with the outcome. It's not on your resume, but your resume is your ticket to get that interview slot. So um, so yeah, rejection with respect to resume, that happens pretty often, especially with the way the competition is today. So here are my suggestions for it, and this is something which I already spoke about. Let's say that your resume is you've applied to 10 places, 10 great companies, and your resume is rejected in all of them, right? Do the rule of rejection. Let me just take a step back, understand, look at it from a third person's kind of view, and try to change something. So very, very simple example would be that uh, if you're, let's say, if you're applying, let's say, for uh, a software engineering role, right? And like obviously you should be the company wants to know that if you can write code, if you're passionate about design, if you're passionate about computer architecture, if you're passionate about solving problems, so on and so forth. So try to include that in your resume. Try to talk a lot more about that, because that can help your resume get shortlisted. You know, so you need to experiment with that, and you need to try have various combination. I mean, like basically figure out why you're getting rejected. If you're rejected for, let's say, 8 to 10 places together, yeah, and always rework on it and get feedback. So what you can also do is you can ask, if you're rejected, you can ask why. It's a super important thing to do when you're rejected, right? So two of the most important things to do when you're getting rejected is, one is ask why. You have I mean, for whatever rejection, you can certainly ask why, right? Like, I mean, very simple example is, let's say a telecaller calls you and they ask you that, is this the right time to speak to you? And you say no, and then they would say, can I talk to you a little bit later? And then you would be like, yes or no, right? So you're giving them reasons on why. And if they say, and like when you say no, if they say why, like you can obviously tell them like, look, I'm in a meeting right now, or I'm heading out right now, or I'm in traffic, or whatnot. Okay, so those are the things about the resume, and this you'll have to like experiment, fine tune, and figure out what works best. Sai Pooja, I hope I've answered your question. I'll take Sheikh's question next. Main things during interview. Sheikh, could you please explain a little bit more on what you meant over there? And meanwhile, while Sheikh is typing, I'll also answer Shubham Gupta. So tell about body language. Okay. So with respect to interviewing, obviously body language is super important, or anyway, right? Like just imagine, like if I was to do this webinar in a very lethargic manner, right? Like let's say I'm showing complete disinterest, um, not showing you can clearly see that I'm not interested at all. It's going to have a negative. So body language is super important. And yeah, you can get rejected. I won't say directly rejected, but it's just that it can, sometimes body language can mean a lot of things as well, and can be perceived in a lot of things, and also it can make the answers which come out uh, sound a lot different. So it is important. Uh, right? Any other questions before we move to the next one?
Any other questions, guys? Anything more to elaborate on? No, I think we can proceed.
Okay, great. Let's move to the next one. So remember I told you that humans are super okay, so I'll just take Shake's question right now and then we'll go to the next. During interview, what are the major things interviewer is expecting? So this is not related to rejection, but I'm just going to share what I feel. So the interviewer is basically looking at if you're able to solve a problem which is presented in front of you. They are also looking at the skills and competencies and domain knowledge which you have for the role. And let's assume if it is a senior role or or the basic leadership skills which are needed for that role to execute. So these are the three things which are looked at. Okay. So coming back to the point of humans are very scared of rejection. We have a fear of rejection. We probably don't talk up or ask a lot of questions because of this fear of rejection, right? So like if you have any wild idea for a business, right? This is another example which you will see. If you look at any business or startup which is disrupting the industry today, they have been like bizarre ideas, absolute bizarre ideas where nobody would even, like people would have probably found it weird or they would have said that this would not work out. But these ideas have worked out really well. This is actually the case in most businesses. So the point I was making is like, if you want to try something on your own, right? Uh, be it you want to do your own business, you want to do something in your own, like with respect to your career or a hobby or whatnot. If you were to go and tell this to your friend, your family, your parents, whoever it is, the chances of them saying that this would not make it is actually higher than them saying that, oh, this is a great idea, this would make it. Even if it seems like a great idea, they are probably going to tell you that it's not the best idea to go through because also like the truth is like, I mean, there is a lot of competition for whatever you do today, and to be successful, like you need to really put in a lot of work effort to be successful today. So that's the way they would see it. But humans generally would have the tendency of rejecting any kind of idea that you tell them that which you're going to do. So I just wanted to call that out to you. So one technique which you can use is, like, I'm sure all of you all would have heard this. Don't tell people what you want to do or your goals. Do it and show it to them. So, like to give you an example of this is, let's say I want to buy a house. I'm not going to go telling people that look, I want to buy a house in Bangalore. I'm going to buy the house in Bangalore and tell people that I wanted to buy a house in Bangalore and I bought it. Right. So this is something also which I wanted to talk about with respect to rejection. Right. So this is rejection is something which all of you all will see in your career and in your life. And it's going to be like really important to learn how to deal with it. What are the techniques that we can use? Right. Also, it is so there is also something called, like I spoke about the how, right? It's also the nature of your request and the way you ask it. So simple example is, if you're most likely, if you ask somebody something, like if you have a basic request to somebody and you ask them in a very polite way, they are going to most likely honor the request if they can. But if you were to ask the same thing in a very rude way or you use different words, um, it's going to be different, right? So another little funny example which I can give you. So there is this kid and there is a parent, right? The kid says that they want to, uh, they want to, they want to like lie down and study at the same time, right? They just say that they want to lie down and then study, right? So this is this is what the kid says. I want to lie down and study. The parent says, no, you can't do that. Unfortunately, it's not good for you. Right? Now the kid again twists it. The kid says, can I study and lie down? Now, when the kid is making this kind of a request, the chance of the parent saying yes is actually higher, because psychologically and according to the human mind, the parent is hearing that I want to study, a- and then hearing about lie down, and the mind actually feels like, okay, this is a pretty genuine request versus someone saying that I want to lie down and then study, right? So it's also the art of asking questions so that you don't have to deal with that much of rejection. And again, a point which I'm calling out, that rejection isn't something which is evil or which is negative as such, as long as we don't let it affect us too much. Right? Never let it hit your confidence. Never let it like, you shouldn't feel that it's because of this that I am this kind of person. And also, like, don't compare yourselves as well. If you When you stop comparing yourselves with others, rejection becomes a lot easier, right? Uh, yeah, so, like, let's assume that if I were to compare myself with, let's say, an athlete who's been training for let's say the Olympics or any kind of athletics or any kind of sport, uh, and we both were to audition at, let's say we work in the same company, right? And but this person has been, uh, training all their lives and played sports at a state level or a national level. If I were to compare myself with them and apply for something which they have also applied in, the chances of me getting rejected are certainly higher than them, right? And that's why, like, you certainly not need to compare yourselves with others, because each of us have our own journey in lives. Each of us have our own stories. Each of us have our own goals as such. So never compare yourself with others and look at, because this will certainly hit you with respect to rejection. You will feel very rejected if you keep comparing yourself to others. So one approach is compete with yourself and look at only your journey and your goal. It is very good to inspire and learn from others. Like in my case, right? When I was growing up, like, I saw a lot of people who, let's say, didn't come from the best of colleges, didn't have the best of education, but started their career with maybe 5,000, 6,000 rupees and have scaled up and doing really well for themselves. So that was like my kind of, uh, I mean, I would look at them as inspirations, but I wouldn't compare myself. Like, I wouldn't be like, okay, X in 2015 is earning X lakhs. So me by 2015, I need to earn X plus Y lakhs, right? That is not the idea over here. Draw inspiration, but please don't compare yourselves with others. Ajay, I think we're at the end of this thing, so I think we can keep this part for questions for a Q&A.
Great, great. I believe most of the things you have added on, and I think few of the audience are bit, what to say, early stage to understand few of the things once they enter, what to say, a corporate life, right? So they will get a better idea. So to proceed with the Q&A session, right? The first question gonna be, as it says, as the webinar title says, how to deal with the rejection. So rejection leads to a lot of other things in terms of anxieties or in terms of fatigue and keeping a person isolated for a long term or something like that, right? So what do you think, like, to come back as soon as possible from that, like what all major things that either viewers or whoever is facing that can what to say, bring those qualities in?
So, so one thing is, please give yourself time, right? We are all humans and we all need time to heal. We all need time to accept it. Okay. So this may be a little bit of an extreme example, but let's say when you lose a loved one, when a loved one passes away, right? We're all going to pass away one day, like, in this world. But accepting that, and when it comes as a shock or whether it's expected, you will certainly be grieving. So it's the same thing with rejection as well. Give yourself time. Like, for some people, they can shake it off in one day. Some people can shake it off in 1 week, and some people it takes even 2 to 3 months, right? So the way you bounce back is one, give yourself time, and second, acceptance. You need to also accept the fact that this has happened, and how do I come back better, right? If you don't accept the fact, you will be running in circles, and you'll be like you'll be going and hitting the same wall again and again. Uh, right? So that is the way in which you bounce back. And third is also strategize your plan in which you can bounce back. Use probability. You would have heard this famous saying that never put all your eggs in one basket. So all of these things can help.
Okay, great. So yeah, one more question would be Rajiv. So let's say a lot of people will go ahead with phases, right, in terms of success or in terms of rejection. What do you think, like constant success will affect the person in terms of handling a rejection?
Yeah. So this is always going to be up and down. You like, I don't think there's anyone who can always be successful 24/7. There are going to be, like, you take any sports person, any celebrity, any actor, any writer, any businessman, they are going to have like ups, downs, and ups and downs. Uh, right. But here's the thing, right? Once you taste success or achieving your goals or getting what you wanted, getting acceptance instead of rejection, right? Once that becomes a habit, you will know that when one door closes, another door opens. You will understand that it's part of life, it's part of the process. So they often say this in sales, and they often say this in a lot of other industries. Like like one of the sayings is only your first million is the toughest. The next one is very easy. Same thing, like only to sell your first product is the most difficult. The second, third will just automatically flow. Uh, so almost any industry which is sales driven will tell you this, right? So the same way over here, like only the first time, like for me, right? It was not until maybe it took me at least once I passed out of college, it took me at least 2 to 3 years to actually reach this stage, right? But once I did, it was like I did have a lot of ups and downs, but at least I had known that I had gotten what I wanted. So it was like I was able to accept that yes, life does go up and down a lot, but at the end of the day, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay, great, Rajiv. That was a great answer. Rajiv, just one more question related to interviews. So let's say recruiters would see a resume and have a word with what to say the person, right, the candidate. So during that time, let's say if a candidate is facing a lot of rejections during the time of switch or while applying for a new job or anything, like is it fine if a candidate tells about the rejection in the interview, or else let's say if there is a long gap of 6 months or a year which is there while a switch or something, so is it fine if it is being mentioned in the interview?
Um, can you just rephrase your question, Ajay?
Okay, so let's say there is a candidate, okay, who is applying for a job switch, and it's been a long, or else it's been a year or something like that. A person had
Okay.
left the company, right? And if a interviewer asks why it had taken this long tenure to shift, or else like what is the reason? So if it is a reason something related to rejection, is it fine to mention about it in an interview?
Why not? Why not? So today all companies are very open today. And so here's the thing. First of all, interviewers don't look at these things. Interviewers would mostly look at, can you solve the problem in the question? Very simple thing is like, let's say it's an algebra interview, just for random thing. X plus A plus B the whole square is equal to A square plus B square plus 2AB. You should be able to demonstrate that. You should be able to implement that. You should be able to execute that. That is, and you should be able to communicate that. That is what the interviewer would look at. The person who may look at this would be maybe the recruiter or the hiring manager. But if you justify it, I don't think anyone is going to say no, right? Like, yeah. So I'm going to give my wife's example. Okay. So my wife actually took a break when we were getting married from work. She she quit her job in, I think, June 2017. We got married in December 2017, and she was in a break for at least 1 year, uh, right? And she wanted to get back to work in 2019. So she was very honest in saying that, look, I got married, I had to take a break, and now I'm coming back. And this is what I want to do. Right now, like she was very honest about it, and companies was also very open with that. Like they were like, okay, fine, this is the reason, right? So long as you're being honest and transparent about it, I don't see that as a problem, because life is very uncertain today. Like COVID would have taught us that, right? I pre-COVID, there are so many people who I knew, they don't exist today, right? I mean, unfortunately, they passed away, or for various reasons. And a lot of us have seen that with our families as well. And maybe we had to be a caregiver. Maybe we had to be an emotional support. Maybe uh, there can be multiple reasons, right? I've gone through that in my life itself. So it's okay to give those reasons. And most companies and people are mature enough to see that. Today, we have evolved a lot. So I don't see that as a problem.
Okay, great. I think that's all from my end. I think I can see one or two questions in the chat
Okay.
from Sheikh, I guess. What are the steps you have taken to deal rejection after getting rejected? We usually had negative thoughts. How did you overcome? I believe you have answered that, but if you can summarize on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, give yourself patience. Accept you're a human. You will take a lot of time, right? Talk to somebody about it. Have a mentor who you can share with. Um, Read a lot of books. They help. Watch good motivational videos.
Sorry to
On
interrupt, Rajiv. Do you think meditation also does help?
Yeah, it does. It does. So meditation is a very broad term. Like it can be, there are multiple sub forms of meditation. For example, playing music, dance. They're actually forms of meditation if you actually look at it, right? It's like, obviously there's a typical kind of meditation where you sit down and you do something. There's also dance, there's gym, there's sports. They're actually meditation, but subconsciously so. Any hobby would help actually.
Great.
And when I mean hobby, I don't mean like watching a lot of series on OTTs, or I don't mean that. I mean something which is like a sport, which is like an art.
Okay, to make you
gardening, cooking.
yeah,
Yeah.
like to make yourself occupied in that phase.
Mm. Yes.
So I think that's all, I guess. Guys, any questions? Any more thing that you want to get clarified upon? You can feel free to post before we close. Okay, I think that's all, I guess, Rajiv. Anything that you want to mention to our viewers before we wind up?
Stay positive, believe in yourself. Rejection is part of life. Learn to deal with it. The more you learn to deal with it, the better your life will be.
Great, great. That was a good note to end the session with. Guys, I believe you have utilized this session in terms of how to deal with rejection, right? So there would be phases which will come in your future or else current situations also, which has a lot of things related to rejections or failures or something like that. How you deal with it, that matters, because your mentality or else your mind is the one which plays around, right? So that would be the thing. And yeah, thank you so much for your time, Rajiv. That was a great session for the audience. I believe they had gained a lot in terms of how to deal with the rejection and how to deal with failures and what kind of things that they can work on and what to focus on. That was really an interactive session. And yes, that would be it for today. We'll be winding it up, and we will be coming back with similar kind of topics in future. And let's say if you want to hear something specific from Rajiv, you can definitely let us know, or support at the rate Verzeo.com mail ID, and we can definitely get something arranged for you. And constant check from the audience does matter, because what you need to hear about and what we can deliver. So all those things we'll consider, and we'll come back with that. And yeah, that's all for today. You can subscribe to Verzeo for having these kind of talks in the future. You can go to our LinkedIn page to check these kind of webinars which would be coming in the future. And definitely you can check out Rajiv's LinkedIn handle also. I believe if you have anything to ask or any questions, he would be eager to answer you over there. And I would be posting his LinkedIn handle in the chat, right? So you can definitely check him out on that. And that's all from my end. Thank you so much, guys, for attending. And thank you, Ryan, for being here and addressing the gathering. Yes, we'll see you soon in the upcoming talk. And thank you all. Have a great evening. It's Ajay Bilav here, signing off.
Thanks, Ajay.
Thank you, Rajiv.